This is a super easy tote bag that I use for everything, and I have been making them for myself. I can get them done in a couple hours, and then people started requesting. This bag has a little bit of applique on it. I'm going to do a separate video for applique. This one is just going to be how to make a tote bag because I want it to be really easy. There's a closure in there with contrasting color, boxed corners. The materials that we are going to need is you can do one big piece of fabric. I'm going to go ahead and strip something together. 1 6-inch strip of a top fabric, 1 6-inch strip of a middle fabric, then 1 9-inch strip of our bottom fabric. The reason the bottom fabric is so much bigger than these other 6-inch squares is because of those boxed corners. We're going to take about 2.5 inches out of the bottom. This is going to be our bag. This is just one strip of fabric, and I like to actually leave the fold in there because that's less sewing, so why would I trim it off? 5-inch strip for our straps. Straps need to be at least 21 inches. So that really, if you think about it like this, would be one strap. So when you fold over, to me that doesn't look super long enough. I usually add a little strip at the bottom. This is just a little remnant. You just need a little scrap, a scrap of something. And this is what I'm going to hold my closure in. I mean, honestly, I only need like that. For my inside, I'm going to use this white sparkly fabric. And honestly, just because it's leftover, I only had maybe a yard, and this uses close to a yard, so I thought this is going to be a really good use of this. This has the fold down at the bottom. Again, we're saving ourselves some of that cutting and sewing time. For hardware, I like this purse parts. It's magnetic. There's 2 of them in there. Super easy to install. That's kind of what I had planned. We are going to go ahead and make the straps first. One thing you'll learn about me is I like to take care of kind of the last step first. Just think that makes everything go more smoothly. All I'm going to do is just fold this 5-inch strip in half. So that's going to give me this 2.5 inch. Now I've ironed this in half. I am going to lay my and I also forgot to mention this in the materials, sorry. This feels like bad. It is fusible on one side. Can you see those little glue dots there? So I'm using a one-sided fusible batting, and I'm just going to lay this right on that seam. So you see, I'm going to have a little bit extra. That's okay, because that's our seam allowance. I typically just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Depending on, I also love that you can use multiple pieces. I'm using up some scraps here. We're done with our strap for now. Our straps. This is just so easy. We now have here's our top. Here's our middle, and now we are going to sew the bottom on. Ta-da! We're done. That was so fast and easy. So we have our top, our middle, and we have our bottom. And because I did it out of a strip, all I'm going to do is just fold this over, and we're just going to have this great bag. Trust me, we're halfway there. I am going to go ahead and press my seams first. I am lining it up, let's see if you can see that, more or less across the top. And I'm going to start at the top. I'm making sure that I have lots of room on the side. So I lay this out nice and flat. My seams are nice and flat, and I'm going to start ironing. I'm not getting over my corners because, hello, that's glue. And that is going to wreck my iron, wreck everything else. But I do want my fabric on top because this is kind of a papery backing. I have ironed on it and it's not too bad. I have my iron set at a cotton setting, like a high setting basically. Okay, so red is done. Now I'm just going to move this up and just make sure that my white section is on the ironing board. Kind of smooth this down. And now I'm going to do my white section. Trim off the excess. I am going to go ahead and use my heavy duty scissors. I wouldn't mind using my applique scissors. To make the straps, so we have our fabric that's been ironed in half and fused on one side. All I'm going to do, line it up, right sides together, and then sew 1/4 inch. Alright, there's Josiah's sock puppet. It's a chicken. Now that I have basically a tube sewn together, I need to turn it right sides out. This gets a little tricky, not too bad. I do have...
Hey, Mom, are you done yet? Mom, are you done now doing that?
Ta-da! Inside of 4 minutes and we have our straps. So here we have our strap. Now we're going to sew down one side 1/4 inch and then just down the other side 1/4 inch. Very easy. And that was pretty painless. So this is basically 2 straps. We're going to cut this in half.
No.
I like to kind of put it over my shoulder, make sure that that's a length that I'm okay with. When I first started making these, I did put just a little bit, like a 2-inch kind of something on there just to add a little bit of accent and then just to extend them. Honestly, they're fine either way. I'm just going to cut this. There we go. We now have our 2 straps. Okay, now we're going to actually sew our bag together. I just went ahead and I folded it over right sides together. I made sure that it is, that the top is up. And then I'm going to sew all the way down and all the way across the bottom. I'm going to do that to the bag. Separately, I'm going to take, and I did trim this down to 20 by 20. I'm going to take, this is the inside, this is the lining, and I'm going to sew this, we'll have this be the side, and you'll see why. And so I'm going to go ahead and sew down one side, and then I'm going to put some pins in here to just kind of mark off where I'm not going to sew. People say just leave like a 3-inch opening. I like a nice big opening. So I'm going to leave like a, that's almost like 6-inch opening. Just mark that off with pins. So I'm going to sew over here, up here, and then over here, and this opening is going to stay open, okay? Before I turn this right side out, we're going to go ahead and we're going to box our corners. I'm going to use a square ruler. You can use whatever you have available to you, but I'm going to take off, let's do 2.5 inches. So I'm going to just line this up, 2.5, 2.5. You can use like washi tape, that kind of thing, especially if you're using a lot of them. I just like to eyeball things, so I'm going to just go up and then over, and there we go. Okay, and then now we're ready to box our corners. I'm just going to do this one here. Okay, there we go. So now we are ready to go ahead and sew those, and I'll show that in a minute. You're going to do that to both the lining and the bag. So now I'm going to take that out of the corners there too. Okay, so we're going to take, this is the lining, and I'm going to take my boxed corner and I'm going to pull it straight. I'm going to line up, this just happens to be on the folded side, but I'm just line up that seam, and I'm going to go ahead and pin this. So now I have a nice straight line ready to sew. This is just when I love it, because this is when the magic starts to happen. Okay, there we go. We have a boxed corner. Boxed corners. It's amazing. We're actually going to leave this inside out and just check and make sure, oh, it's in the bottom, that we still have our hole. Okay? This is going to be magic. For the purse part, you are going to want to nest those seams there best you can. You might want to just double reinforce this. It's up to you. You know, you got a lot of bulk here, but I really do like to get a good stitch in there all the way across. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this right side out. Look at that beautiful tote, beautiful tote. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to place our straps on there, and we just have 1 or 2 more stitches and we're almost done. We're going to put our straps on. I just folded the bag in half and I just put a pin in there and lined up my ruler. This is a 5-inch ruler, so these straps are going to be 5 inches apart. We're going to lay them face or going down, okay? That's very important. And then I like to make sure that they lay, and I'm just going to kind of match them up on either side here, and I like to make sure that they fold the exact same way. Okay, now is when the magic happens. My straps are pinned down on either side, and I'm going to slip the lining over the whole thing. Okay, the lining is inside out. So the right side is facing in, the bag is right side out. Slip this over the whole thing. Make sure your straps are down. Okay. Then I'm going to line up my corners. So here's my seam. I'm going to line it up with the seam of the bag. Put a pin in there. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and do the other one, the other side. And then I'm just going to kind of straighten it a little bit and make sure I kind of get that in the center. FYI, the pins in here. Okay, one thing I did here is I took off the arm of my sewing machine. That just makes it easier to kind of go around here. I think that this is for like doing like sleeves and stuff. I find it's just 100% easier because now the bag is just going around my sewing machine. I'm going to sew 1/4 inch, making sure that I'm kind of lining up those pins and then just really being careful as I go over the tops of the straps and making sure that I kind of get everything in there nice as can be. Okay, now before we turn it right side out, we're going to take all the pins out, and then we're going to see the magic. Okay, now time for the magic. I'm going to reach in this underneath part and I'm going to pull the whole bag through, and this does take a little bit of wrestling. Magic! We have this beautiful boxed bag. Our lining is right side out, but it's sticking out, so we're just going to sew that close, stuff it in there, really push out all those corners, and we're almost done. Okay, I just go ahead and I kind of fold over the closing there and just sew it. I just sew it really close to the edge. Okay, now, very important to roll that seam down all the way around. We're going to roll it down and we're going to do a big stitch around this outside here. Ta-da! We have a great little tote bag. Look at those beautiful boxed corners. I absolutely love these. What I'm going to do to attach the closure, again, I just took this little scrap, and this will be like a cute little accent in there. I'm going to just fold it over in half, sew up the two sides here, and I'm going to put that thing in there and turn it around. I'll kind of show you here. I just folded this over. I'm just going to go up one side. I could probably just go across the other, actually. Then I'm going to turn this inside out. Okay. I now have my magnet in here. This is the part that I want facing the other one. I'm going to just kind of tuck these corners down, and then I'm going to go ahead and just sew it right in. I have it set and pinned in there. I'm going to go ahead and sew across the top first. That's going to close that up, and then I'm just going to pivot and go around. I'm going to make sure, and trust me, I've learned this by mistake, that I don't have my straps in there. And then just know I am using a contrasting thread, so anything that I do is going to show up on the other side. Okay, there we go. One closure in, and then we're just going to do that on the other side.